change. The size can be either bigger or smaller depending on the scale factor. Now the ones we're going to be doing, the center is going to be at 0, 0. So you're starting at 0 and then you're making it bigger or smaller based on that. The scale factor is how big or how small it makes it. Okay? If the scale factor is less than 1, then it's going to be a reduction. So if the figure is this big, and if the scale factor is less than 1, it's a reduction, because if it's this big, and then it just becomes that much smaller. If it's a half or a third, that's how much smaller it becomes. If the scale factor is greater than 1, then it's an enlargement, which makes sense, because if the scale factor is 2, that means I want it to be twice as big. Or if the scale factor is 4, I want it to be 4 times as big. Okay, so let's talk about finding the scale factor in these two examples. All right? So, in this first example, we're going to pick out something. You can pick J, you can pick K, L, M, it doesn't matter. Pick whichever ones look easier for you. I think J looks pretty easy, and I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write down what point that is. Okay, it looks like J is 0, 2. And it looks like J prime is 0, 1. Okay, which one do you start with, J or J prime?
J.
J. So we're going from J to J prime. So did the figure get bigger or smaller? Smaller. Okay. So it went from, the zeros stayed the same, but the 2's, it went from 2 to 1. So what happened with the 2 to 1? If you divide by 2, that's how you get the 1, right? Dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by a half. Okay? So what we did is we multiplied the original one by half to get to the smaller one. And when they give you the scale factor, you just multiply by that thing. But basically all they did is they multiplied by half. So the scale factor is a half. So when you're trying to figure it out, if you figure out what you divide by, that tells you the scale factor. Or if you figure out what you multiply by. Okay, look at the next one. So it might not be drawn on a coordinate plane. It might just be two triangles. Okay? First of all, we need to find the scale factor. And after we find the scale factor, it looks like we're going to be finding x and y. Okay? So let's start with these two right here. What do I multiply 4 by to get to 12? 3. That means that the scale factor is 3. And if you figure out what the scale factor is, that's what you multiply every side by to get to the everything. So if I'm trying to get x, I'm starting with 5, and what am I going to do? Multiply by 3, so I get 15. Okay, now I want to get y. Here's y, here's 30. So am I going to multiply 30 by 3? I need to divide. Since I'm starting with the bigger one and I want to go to the smaller one, I need to divide it by 3, and I'll get y is 10. Any questions? Now, I'm going to show you one other thing. I'm going to erase all that and show you one other thing. There is a way to do that without doing it the way that I did it. And you may or may not like it this way, but we'll see. What you do is you pick two sides where there's something on each side, and you just put one over the other. Okay? And pick the two sides that you want to find something for. So if y'all want to find the top side, 5 and x. Alright, 4 came first, so 5's got to come first. The triangle that's together comes first. Okay? So what you could do if you don't like to do it the other way is you could do it this way, and then what happens is you cross multiply. Sometimes I've heard people call it a butterfly. You get 4x equals 60. Divide by 4, and you'll get x is 15. That's another way to do it. Sometimes when finding the scale factor is like a fraction or a decimal or something, that way might be easier because it's hard to figure out what that scale factor is. Okay? So I just wanted you to see that just in case you thought that way was better. We will be doing some problems that way later. Okay, Next fill in the blank. It says on a coordinate plane, blank the coordinates by the scale factor. You multiply the coordinates by the scale factor. And the rule is if you start with x, y, and the scale factor is 2, you'll multiply each of them by 2. That makes sense? All right, let's look at some examples about that. All right, so the first example says dilate the triangle with vertices 3, 6, negative 15, 3, 12, 9, negative 9 by a scale factor of 1/3. Okay? All that means to do is to take each of those points and multiply by 1/3. Multiplying by 1/3 is the same as timesing by 3, so I can do it without a calculator. Dividing by 3, I don't know if that's what I said. Timesing by 1/3 is the same as dividing by 3. So when I divide the 3 and the 6 by 3, I get 1 and 2. When I divide the 15 and the 3, I get negative 5 and 1. When I divide the C by 3, you get 4 and negative 3. So try number 2 by yourself. Okay, so what do you guys get for A prime? 4, 6, because I'm multiplying by 2, right? Ray, what did you get for B prime? Okay. Dakota, what did you get for B prime? What did you get for B prime?
Negative 12, 0.
Negative 12, 0. Because all you're doing is multiplying by 2 because it says scale factors 2. Logan, what did you get for C prime?
Negative 6, negative 2.
Good. All right. Next, number 3, it says find the image for the given scale factor. So scale factor is 3 on number 3. So what do you think that means that we're going to do? Multiply all the points by 3. Now, unfortunately, you're going to have to write down what those points are. So P is not 1. 2, negative 1. R is 4, negative 1. And Q is 2, 4. So if the scale factor is 3, I'm going to multiply it all by 3. Now, there's not enough room for me to draw this on here, but I'm going to do the best I can. Okay? 6, negative 3 I can do. 12, negative 3 I can't. 12, negative 3 would be out here somewhere. And then 6, 12 is going to be way up here somewhere off my paper. So I'm just going to do the best I can and just try to draw it. And I know it's going to be quite a bit larger than the original. Okay. The ones that you'll have, most of them, you'll be able to draw the picture on there better than I was able to. Okay. All right, let's look at number 4. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write out what the points are because I can't multiply by the scale factor until I write them out. So P is negative 3, 0. Q is 0, 3. And R is 1, negative 3. Okay, it tells me the scale factor is 3/4. So how am I going to do this with the scale factor being 3/4? What am I going to do? Multiply by 3/4. Okay, negative 3 times 3/4. And you can use your calculator. You're probably going to want some decimals, or at least an idea of the decimal, because we're going to estimate when we put it on our paper.
Negative 3.25.
And then 0, because I know that when I multiply something by 0, I still get 0. So 0 for Q, and then still that 2.25 number. 1 times 3/4, I know is going to be 3/4, so that's 0.75, and then negative 3 I already know. Now, when you draw it, just estimate the best that you can. Negative 2.25, I know is a little past the 2 with a 0. The Q is 0, 2.25, just a little past the 2. And then the R, 0.75, I know is between 0 and 1. So you're just kind of estimating. So between 0 and 1, and then right before you get right after the negative 2, and then draw it. Most of the ones you'll have will be easier to draw and easier to come up with those points, but just in case, that's what they would be.